Hello, is this the right place
This is. Hi, Neil.
and the right time?
Yes. Are you on the right asteroid?
Aha, I'm floating.
Uh,
We can get a real background here. That's fine. Let me see what I got
all
going
right.
here. No, nope, not that. There we go. That's my real back.
That's very good. Well, I really
Well,
love the
thanks for your
book.
interest.
Yeah, I love the book and can't wait to talk to you about it. Let's just start with the quick summary. What is To Infinity and Beyond about?
Yeah, what I found is that when you read the history of discovery in science and technology, people tend to skim all the parts that worked, all the parts that and you left leaving the impression of some kind of linear progress. This person discovers this and they discover that and then here we are, right? And so To Infinity and Beyond is a little more honest than that. It looks at attempts that have failed, to attempts at what? So we stand flat-footed on Earth and you look up and you ask, how would I ever ascend from Earth? I mean, it's a pretty simple question. But, Icarus tried, all right? And so Icarus falls to his death after his wings melt. I think most of us know that legend, the Greek legend. And so what's your next thought? Is it I'm never going to try that? Or is it, if I try it, I'm going to build wings out of a different material, right? So what is it that allows you to, something wants you to keep going, but then you have to be innovative in doing so. And so this is a journey of how far we've gone with our bodies and how far beyond that we've gone with our technology and how far beyond that we've gone with our minds.
Mm,
And so To Infinity and Beyond, for me, that title captures what may seem like the infinite at any given moment becomes a past tense accomplishment in the future.
yeah.
And throughout this journey, there are science fiction movies typically that have attempted to portray what we talk about. And the book, since it emanates from my podcast, Star Talk, that Star Talk has three strands of DNA, if I may borrow the biological analogy. One of them is science, another is pop culture, and the third is humor. And those three strands, when braided, what we found is that you bring science to people in that way, they come back for more. And so that DNA is imbued within all the pages of this book. So these sci-fi films that show people attempting things that we're talking about, we'll talk about the film. Did they get it right? Did they
Mm.
get it wrong? Were they imaginative? Were they ignorant of, or maybe we didn't know anything and they just made it up, and that's okay too, until later on you learn how to do it right. So it's a celebration of the human spirit. I'd like to think of it in that way. Spirit of exploration.
Well, and looking at your other books, it almost feels like a culmination of your whole journey that you have been trying to ascend. I love the story about you looked up and you thought there were only 6 stars because
Oh,
that's what you saw from the Bronx.
I think it was 8 stars. I
Oh,
thought it
okay.
was, you're completely off. I knew there were more than 6 stars.
Oh, good. I've been fact checked here.
Yeah. It was at a first. I grew up in the big city, right, in New York City, and my first night sky was my local planetarium,
Yeah.
the Hayden Planetarium. I thought it was a hoax. Like no, there aren't that many. I've seen the stars in the night sky.
Yeah.
You are lying to me, right? From the Bronx, there are 8 stars or 9 stars. So I think anybody who is lifelong curious can appreciate what it is. Because when you're curious, it means there's something I don't know
Mhm.
and I want to figure it out
Mm.
or learn about it. That's an ascent. And one of my great critiques of the education system. One day I'll write something on this. It's all percolating in my head, baking in my head, which
Mhm.
means it's half baked right now because it's not done yet. But one of my great critiques is there schools imagine you as an empty vessel that they fill with knowledge, and then you test it and you memorize the vocabulary words, rather than seeing you as a child of boundless curiosity. Now we want to make you an adult of boundless curiosity.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
It's a big difference, because if you graduate curious, then you'll spend the rest of your life learning, and you'll spend many more hours learning not in school than you did in school.
Yeah.
So I reached a point where I didn't even remember what I learned in school, because I'd learned so much. I learned 10 times as much not in school as
Mhm.
I continued to explore. And you can learn a lot of different ways, especially today. You got to watch it though, because there's a lot of sort of fake information out there. But you look at documentaries, there are books, there's videos, there's festivals you can attend, museums you could go to, classes you could take on the side. A lot of ways to feed that curiosity. And the people, we know these people who last day of school, they'll run down the steps tossing their books and papers in the air saying school's out. There's even a rock anthem with that theme. I think it's by Alice Cooper. School's out for summer, school's out forever. And it's like, wait, why are we celebrating this? The song is great. I'm feeling the love of no school in the song, but maybe the school has failed us in some way. Not literally on your score in an exam, but they fail to inculcate within us a sense of curiosity, where the journey to learn in our lives would this so to infinity and beyond would be metaphor.
Yeah.
It's literally true for everybody we're talking about, and then it's metaphor for your life. Yes. So that's my long way to agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think I've got a grandson who's 7, is full of questions and full of the kind of curiosity you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I just,
By the way, as an
yeah,
adult and as a grandparent, so again, this is being half baked in my head right now.
yeah.
You don't the the issue here is not that they're curious and they have questions and then you're supposed to answer them, because for the day will come where you can't answer them, right? However disappointing that is to the kid. But what instead should be happening is they have a question and you say, let's go find the answer.
Ah.
And then the journey to the answer is itself part of the learning, rather than just handing them an answer.
Well, and the other thing that I can picture, so Ryan's 7. When he graduates from high school, he'll be what, 18? Uh, and I've got an older grandson who's finishing up high school. He wants to get into college. He's on the track of the education system that you're critiquing. But what would a high school graduating senior who had graduated from your style of education, still lit up with curiosity, even look like? What would he or she be interested in?
No,
What?
you would still take classes, but the classes would be taught differently.
I
You'd
see.
still learn things, but you wouldn't learn them as endpoints. You'd learn
Ah,
them as
as a
midpoints.
process. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a process. Correct.
Hmm.
Correct.
Hmm.
Now, I'm primarily thinking of the sciences. I put less creative thought into how this would look in the liberal arts, in your art class, in your writing class, in your poetry class. That's I'd have to think more about that, and maybe I shouldn't even go there. But the what would it look like? It would be someone who they get to college and everything interests them. So
Yeah, yeah. They wouldn't choose their major in the first
yeah,
semester
it'd
of
be
freshman
hard to
year.
choose a major. It'd be hard, but that's a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. That might be a good thing. Uh, no, what you do is you choose something. Your interest will probably orbit one place relative to another. It shouldn't be too hard, because you would have explored your interest the whole time.
Mm, yeah,
And
yeah.
you choose not simply what you did best in school, because that's not only always what it is you want to do. Don't confuse getting high grades with, yeah, I should do that for the rest of my life.
Well,
Because
that
if you
sort of
do what you
surprises me because I always thought that the things I was interested, like I was always interested in reading and writing, and I was pretty good at it. How could someone arrive at being good at something they didn't really like?
Oh, no, I think there's plenty of that. There are plenty of
Yeah.
people good at things that have no interest in it. I know people who took music lessons and got really good at it, but they hated it because they were forced to take the lessons.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they were fast study, right? They learned and they
Hmm.
got their basics down pat. They're I was very good at mathematics, but I didn't want to be a mathematician. I
Hmm.
saw math as a tool to help me learn other things.
Right.
So so yeah, both can happen. You could be good at something but not really enjoy it, or you can enjoy something and not really be good at it.
Yeah.
What I would say is, if you enjoy something and you're not good at it, you will probably be better at that than anything else you would ever attempt to do in life,
Uh,
because you'll pursue it even when no one's looking over your shoulder.
that's right. It'll have its own fuel.
It'll have, I love that phrase, fuel. Yes.
Mm.
And there are many tests I've taken in different classes where if I had another week or two, I'd do better on the exam. So speed apparently mattered, of how quickly you could learn
Mm.
something.
Hmm.
And I always thought, I didn't want to call it unfair, but I thought it wasn't as good a measure of what I could become as an adult as some. No, I didn't want, nowadays there's IAP, is that what they call it? An individual something. I'm getting
Oh,
the
education
abbreviation
plan,
wrong.
IEP.
Yeah, yeah, education, EP, sorry.
Yeah.
And where, okay, if you need more time, or if you're dyslexic, or you you know you so they shape a way to test you so that whatever your circumstances in the neurodiverse world in which we live, that it does not hold you back.
Hmm.
So there are things, there are classes I could teach with great insight and knowledge that I remember getting a B or a B minus in.
Mm.
But that teacher would never say, "Oh, you'll never, no, don't come back and do this." They'll assert that
Hmm.
because in the 3 weeks of that unit, I didn't score above a, a grade point that they judge is what is necessary to assess my promise and performance later on in life.
Yeah.
And that's wrong. That's
Yeah.
just wrong. So I'm working on that.
You mentioned humor as one of the three braids that you put together in your show,
Strands
and
in the braid. It's one
strands in
braid.
the braid, right?
One
One
braid.
braid,
Yes,
three
yes. Get your
strands.
braid straight.
Okay. I'm not going to be able to be as sloppy as I am with some guests.
No, you can't. That's right.
The only other guy that called me out so precisely, I interviewed a poet, John Ashbery, before he died. And I would say, why do you love poetry? Well, I don't know if I actually love poetry, but so your precision reminds me of one of the greatest poets in American
Well, I don't want to
literature.
be like annoying to you. I
No,
just want,
no, no.
yeah.
I was grateful in both cases to sort of,
Good. Thank
up
you.
my game, my understanding. Uh, you mentioned in response to a question I saw, someone said, well, what do the quote real scientists think of you? You're a popularizer. And you rightly pointed out that Carl Sagan got criticized for going on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Similar thing. He wanted people to understand what he understood for the greater good. And I found a clip of Johnny with Carl Sagan in 1977. Sagan is pretty young at that point, and he tells a story that's sort of similar to yours. That he grew up in Brooklyn, I guess, and
Yes, he did.
somebody told him that the sun is the same size roughly as the stars; they're just further away. And that's when he said, and suddenly the universe got a lot bigger than Brooklyn. And but and the thing I noticed there was Carson, he just really liked Sagan, and it wasn't just because he was good entertainment. I think he said he fell in love with the stars when he was on a Navy ship, and there was just some kind of a draw between this comedian and this astrophysicist. And I happened to catch Colbert's first show after the strike, and you were the first guest, and he said you are his favorite guest, and it's because you burn with an incandescent passion. And I could just see that Colbert had that same connection with you that Johnny Carson seemed to have with Carl Sagan. And what's up with that? Is the universe funny, or is there some kind of a natural connection
Yeah, I
between?
think the universe is fundamentally hilarious. Actually, I think, uh, and I joke about it, but I say when I died, I don't want to die up in a hospital of some slow disease. Throw me into a black hole, right? And I'll report back everything until I'm stretched apart and crushed.
Ooh.
Uh, so Johnny Carson more broadly was scientifically literate and was interested in science.
Mhm.
And so Carl Sagan fit into that pre-existing interest that Johnny Carson had.
Mm.
And then he became one of his favorite guests, right?
Yeah.
Because of that. And in fact, the stereotype of Carl Sagan saying billions and billions, Carl Sagan never said billions and billions. That was Johnny Carson
Oh,
imitating Carl Sagan. Right. So that's a funny little unknown fact. The Stephen Colbert, I think he's probably the smartest person on television
hmm.
in terms of his body of knowledge, his wit, his improvisational capabilities, his just all of the above. And I think he likes me when I'm on his show because we can talk about things other than, oh, what'd you have for Thanksgiving dinner?
Mm.
You know, if there's an actor, unless the actor is totally into something other than acting, what are you really going to talk? Oh, how was it to work with that director? You know,
Mm.
the questions become very perfunctory after a while. And so I think he views me as an escape from whatever else he ends up having to interview.
He can go
Yeah.
in any direction with you.
A lot of directions for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, the the improvisation. I was curious. Somebody had told me ChatGPT and the other generative AIs, they don't have a sense of humor. They can't be funny. And I said, well, really? So I tried a setup with ChatGPT, and the setup was an astrophysicist, a biologist, and an asteroid walk into a bar. And then I asked ChatGPT for the punchline. Now I've got the punchlines. Do you want to try one first and compare it with ChatGPT's, or the other
Sure.
way
So
around?
so the setup was an astrophysicist,
A biologist and an
a biologist,
asteroid walk
and an
into a bar.
asteroid
Walk into a bar.
walk into a bar. Okay. So what happens next? Okay. Uh, sorry. An asteroid, a biologist,
An astrophysicist, a
oh,
biologist,
and,
and
and
an
an asteroid.
asteroid. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Let me think. Um, hmm. Uh, asteroid. Let me think. And I can't think of a good one. I can think of a cop out one. So an astrophysicist, a biologist, and an asteroid walk into a bar, and the asteroid says to the others, "You know, we should duck next time."
That's pretty good.
That's
Well,
stupid, but it takes you in a different direction than you think it would go.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. That's
Okay, so what
humor.
did Chat GPT have?
ChatGPT had a couple. One was the bartender looks up and says, "What is this? The beginning of a bad joke or the end of the world?"
Oh, okay.
Is that funny? Or I mean, you could end the world with an asteroid, right?
Yeah, not walking into a bar, but it would be coming at us at very high speeds. Okay,
Okay, so
that's a good starter
yeah,
punchline. Okay,
right, for a
I don't
novice.
want to crit. It's good. Okay, so what else do you have there?
Okay, the other one is astrophysicist, a biologist, and an asteroid walk into a bar. The astrophysicist says, "This is an amazing discovery." The biologist remarks, "I wonder if it has life on it." The asteroid replies, "Hey, can I just get a drink in here?"
Good one. I like that. I like that. Very
Well,
good.
yeah,
I'll
so
give it a B plus.
a B plus, not
Mhm.
bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's you're not going to put Colbert out of a job, that's for sure.
What is true is that if you ask it to teach you something,
Yeah,
there is no sense of humor or personality in the lesson plan.
yeah,
Whereas an educator will think more about who you are and what's going on, and might throw in a little humor, a little reflectivity on something that you care about, and
yeah,
that'll shape how they say it. And maybe you just have to tell Jet GPT all of that, and it'll
yeah.
shape it. Say
Make it a
with a
little
little
funny.
humor and the fact that I'm senior citizen
Mm.
and I was born in this year and I grew up in this country. So make it relevant to me while you're teaching me about Shakespeare or whatever. It could probably pull that
Yeah,
off.
yeah. You'd have to maybe have some iterations of it.
Right.
Um,
Did I tell you I was interviewed on a podcast by a a generative AI?
oh, I'll be
Yeah.
darned. And it lasts
Yeah.
more
So
than
they
20
asked
minutes.
him they asked
Yeah.
what who do they want to interview first, and they mentioned me. So I
Well,
thought I was honored by that.
Yeah.
That's either a good thing or bad thing. If I'm the first target of a computer, I don't know I don't quite know what to
If
make of
we
that.
knock him off, we win.
Right. So the questions were perfunctory, right?
Yeah.
And I said, well, do I have permission to ask it back some questions? I asked the host, who set this. They said, sure, go ahead. So I asked it some questions that I thought, one of them, it didn't really have a good answer. And when I gave it a better answer, it thanked me for giving it a better answer.
Mm.
It's going to fold it into its future thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there it is. It's learning in real time, as any good AI should or would do.
Yeah. Going back to the book, published by National Geographic, my Kindle version on my iPad, there's some gorgeous illustrations. What else was your experience of writing a book and having it published by National Geographic?
That's the third in the collaboration between my podcast and National Geographic.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was called just Star Talk, the book.
Mm-hmm.
And the next one was named for a very successful spinoff from the main show. It's called Cosmic Queries, where people just simply ask questions and we read them on the air. We have fun with them. We bring in experts. And that's a privilege granted only to our Patreon supporters, but everyone gets to hear the exchange.
Mm.
The interesting thing for me about To Infinity and Beyond as a Nat Geo collaboration is just how beautiful the book is.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that is captured on the Kindle reader, but it's, Nat Geo doesn't make ugly books,
Right.
They make beautiful books. And this one satisfies that in the reader. Also, the layout is such that when I do talk about films, or these are sort of side shows that are go on while you're learning the main arc of the storytelling. And those are duly pulled out from the flow because they're like biscuits along the way.
Yeah.
Or Reese's Pieces, right? You get to taste it. That was tasty. Let me move on and give you energy to continue.
You have a co-author on the book, Lindsay Nix Walker, who's a longtime senior producer of Star Talk. I was curious, how did you and she divide the writing duties? Did you each
so what's the
do a
mechanics
topic?
of it? You're asking? Sure, that's a great question for any co-authored book.
Yeah.
So first, she's been our senior editor and a senior producer for 6, 7, 8 years, 8 years. And sorry, she's been senior producers in the recent years, but she's been a producer with the program much earlier. And she she majored in journalism, science journalism in college. And her first gig was writing about astrobiology for NASA's Astrobiology magazine. NASA actually has a publication called Astrobiology. We spotted her there, offered her this occasion and opportunity. As a producer, she's not writing in the same way, but we realized she wanted to get sort of back in. So in the previous Cosmic Queries book, she was an editor of that book. And I said, it's time to elevate her to full up co-author. And that's what we did. So we had to transition her from writing as a journalist to writing. When you're writing, you want people to want to keep reading. You want, you write a sentence. Well, that's interesting. Of course, journalists want that too, but you're not allowed much to put in your personality or any flavor or fun, because that paints or taints the objectivity of what you're doing. But here we're celebrating the universe. So we work with her to build a voice, is what writers would call it. And then what would happen is I would sketch out some chapters where the places I want to hit. I know I want to say this. Here's a funny part. And then she would take that and completely flesh it out into entire chapters. And using her journalistic chops, there'd be some, I think I remember that somebody said this at some time about this discovery. So and then she'll go completely dig that up and authenticate it and make it correct. And so the book is actually heavily footnoted in response to that.
Yeah.
So there's sections that I wrote purely, sections she wrote purely, but a big bulk of the book, I'd say half the book at least, was created in this way, where I would set up a scaffold
Mm-hmm.
that she then filled out and fleshed out in the whole middle there. Yeah.
Hmm.
And she's delighted by it. It's her first book. And
That's
yeah, she's
cool.
very proud of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as we speak, it's on the bestseller list.
Oh,
On the New
at the
York.
New York Times bestseller.
It debuted at number 4
Not bad.
on October 1st.
Wow.
And then, it's hard to keep those up, and it's a very competitive space.
Yeah.
The next week it dropped to 14.
Hmm.
And then it fell off the list on the third week, but then it came back on. I think the Colbert parents put it back on the list.
Yeah.
So,
Well, this will probably bump it up a little too. So this is
okay.
well spent.
Get that Kindle bump.
The
Let's do
Kindle
it.
Chronicles bump. Oh my God. Your work, I understand, part of the humor thing is you put information in front of people, they come back, they get more. If the net result of your efforts over your lifetime career were to educate the public or result in, say the US, more of a consciousness of the truths of the universe and how to ascend.
Yes, perfectly stated.
What would that look like in terms of political movements or results in public policy? What would be the end point that would benefit our country and humanity if you succeeded in actually getting everyone to understand the stakes here?
Yeah, I don't want to think of it as an end point.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a journey.
Mm-hmm.
And the journey is every next decision done a little more wisely by virtue of having been infused with a bit of science literacy? You can look at things over time. For example, you no longer see people talking to dead people on television.
Hmm.
Okay. These mediums, remember,
Yeah.
for a while there, the 80s and early 90s, that was quite rampant.
Yeah.
You don't see that.
Topper,
What
was
else
that
don't
a ghost or?
You don't see high level people
Yeah.
with political power referencing horoscopes.
Yeah.
But you did a few decades ago.
So that's
Okay?
progress.
I claim that's progress. Correct.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more. Those who were in denial of climate change, I will not even call them skeptics, because a skeptic is someone who can actually be convinced by data. They know how to be convinced by data. And these were just denialists. They've moved, and they tend to find that in the conservative side of the political spectrum. They move from there is no climate change to, okay, there's climate change, but there's nothing we can do about it. Okay, there's climate change. No, sorry. There's no climate change. And the second one was there's climate change, but it's natural.
Mm-hmm.
The third was there's climate change. Okay, we're doing it, but there's nothing we can do about it. Okay, that's progress. Okay?
Yeah.
That's to go from there is no climate change to, yeah, I guess we are responsible, but now there's nothing we can do about it. That's a political declaration that could have political solutions behind or in front of closed doors. So I count those as successes. And so the anti-vaccine movement, that was a bit regressive. And I'm actually executive producer on a documentary that is it's getting its theatrical release November in Los Angeles and New York. It's called Shot in the Arm, which explore with a great title, right?
Yeah.
There's a writer, producer, and director who it's his project. And I was brought on as executive producer and script consultant because he's trying to explore what made people vaccine hesitant to begin with. What's behind it? What are the vulnerabilities? How do we correct it? It's a very compassionate look at the impact of these scientifically regressive forces on people just trying to make the best decisions they think they can for themselves and for their family and loved ones. So it shows the anti-vaxxers, the leading anti-vaxxers, and we interview medical doctors, nurses, people in the trenches on the front lines. So he brought me on to also help him convey that message.
Yeah.
In the editing of this footage that he had accumulated for this film. I was honored that he valued how I communicate science enough to fold it into this medical documentary, Shot in the Arm.
Yeah.
And so, the real, let me invert your question, right? And say, look at how much rampant anti-science there is in the world. Neil, how do you face yourself in the mirror each day? Have you?
Where did you screw up?
Are you just, thank you. Are you just a failure? You just go home. So rather than think that, because I tend to be a positive guy, rather than think that, I instead say, imagine how much worse it would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever we're clinging on to now. All right. And do you remember was it 2017? Yeah, 2017, after Trump had gotten inaugurated.
Yeah.
So was it February or March? There was a science march on Washington.
Yeah. Right.
And it's like, what? Why do you have to, what? A science march? And one of my favorite placards was, if the geeks have to march on Washington, you know the country's in trouble.
You brought them out of their windowless rooms.
Oh my gosh. If we got to come out of our parents' basement and tell you.
Yeah. You're cooked.
Yeah. And there were some fun signs there too. They were having fun. One of them was, what do we want? Objectively true science. When do we want it? Well, after peer review of research or something.
That's good. That's good.
And another one was, what do we want? Time machine. When do we want it? It doesn't matter. Very clever signs in that. But there were speeches and things.
Yeah.
My good friend Bill Nye was I did not attend. He did. And there's speeches and things. So that's evidence that people care on a level that led to that march.
Sure. When people see that it's being rolled back, there's a movement that rights the balance.
Yeah, unfortunately, you got to roll it back to push people forward. Yeah. So people propel themselves.
Good stuff. I have been speaking with Neil deGrasse Tyson, co-author of To Infinity and Beyond, A Journey of Cosmic Discovery, published in September by National Geographic. Thanks very much, Neil.
Oh, no, thanks for having me.